On January 1st, 2026, Chelsea Football Club did what they do best. They sacked another manager. Enzo Maresca, the man who won the Conference League, lifted the Club World Cup and had Chelsea sitting 5th in the Premier League, was gone. But here's the thing. This wasn't your typical Chelsea sacking. Because Maresca didn't just lose the dressing room. He didn't just fail tactically. He went to war with the medical staff, flirted with Manchester City, and created one of the most toxic environments in modern football. So today, we're answering the question everyone's asking. How bad is Enzo Maresca actually? And trust me, the answer is way more complicated than you think. Let's rewind to June 2024. Chelsea had just parted ways with Mauricio Pochettino after a season that ended fine. They finished 6th, qualified for Europe, and the football was actually starting to look decent. But this is Chelsea under BlueCo ownership. Fine isn't good enough. They wanted someone who fit their system. A head coach, not a manager. Someone who'd work with the sporting directors, follow the medical protocols, and stay on message. Enter Enzo Maresca, fresh off winning the championship with Leicester City, playing beautiful possession-based football and ticking every box Chelsea wanted. Young, tactically sophisticated, and most importantly, willing to work within their structure. The appointment made sense. On paper, fast forward 18 months, and Maresca's gone. But in that time, he won 2 trophies, qualified for the Champions League, and had one of the most expensive squads in football history at his disposal. So what went wrong? Well, buckle up, because this story has 5 main chapters, and every single one is absolutely wild. December 13th, 2024. Chelsea had just beaten Everton 2-0. Everything seemed fine. Then a journalist asked Maresca a simple question about Malo Gusto's development. And Maresca exploded. I've had the worst 48 hours since I've been at this club because of a lack of support from many people. The room went silent. Journalists started firing follow-up questions. What happened? Who didn't support you? What's going on? Maresca refused to elaborate. He just sat there, stone-faced, and moved on. Now, imagine you're Chelsea's ownership. Your head coach just went on live television and told the world that people inside the club aren't supporting him. He's created a PR nightmare and he won't even explain what he's talking about. Behdad Eghbali, Chelsea's co-owner, was reportedly profoundly disturbed by this. And honestly, you can understand why. Because here's what we know now. That comment wasn't about Malo Gusto at all. It was about the medical department. See, Chelsea has an independent medical team. They have final say on when players can return from injury. Not the manager, not the head coach, the medical staff. And Maresca, he hated that. He wanted full control over team selection. He wanted to play Reece James 3 games in 1 week, even though the medical staff said it was reckless. He wanted to override their protocols because he believed he knew better. And when they pushed back, he went on TV and aired the club's dirty laundry. That was strike 1. But it gets worse. Let's talk about Reece James. When fit, he's one of the best right-backs in the world. The problem, he's never fit. Chronic hamstring issues have destroyed his last 2 seasons. Chelsea's medical team implemented strict load management protocols to protect him. They monitor his training load, his game time, everything. It's not about being cautious. It's about protecting a £250,000 a week asset who's made of glass. But Maresca didn't care. In 1 week, he played Reece James 3 consecutive 90-minute matches. The medical staff told him not to. They warned him. They said James's body couldn't handle it. Maresca did it anyway. And guess what happened? He got away with it. James didn't snap his hamstring that week. He actually managed to start the next match against Newcastle. But that didn't save Maresca. It actually made things worse. Why? Because sources have confirmed that the worst 48 hours comment wasn't about an injury report. It was about a reprimand. Maresca had ignored a direct red zone warning from the medical department. When the directors called him out for gambling with their captain's career, Maresca didn't apologise. He claimed lack of support. He viewed the medical restrictions as interference. The board viewed his defiance as dangerous arrogance. Chelsea didn't hire Maresca to be a traditional manager with full autonomy. They hired him to be a head coach who works within their structure and deliberately ignoring medical protocols. That's not just insubordination, that's reckless. When you're managing a squad worth over £1 billion, you can't just do whatever you want. These players are assets, and Maresca was treating them like they were disposable. That was strike 2. Now, let's talk about loyalty. In late October 2024, Maresca informed Chelsea that he'd been in discussions with representatives from Manchester City. Then, in mid-December, he told them again. Now, to be fair to Maresca, his contract required him to disclose any contact from other clubs. He was technically following the rules. But come on, Pep Guardiola's contract runs until 2027. But everyone in football knows this could be his last season. City are doing their due diligence on potential successors, and Maresca, who worked under Pep as an assistant, is high on their list. Pep even called him one of the best coaches in the world in a press conference. So, yeah, City are interested. But here's the problem. Maresca's having these conversations while Chelsea's form is collapsing. They'd won only one of their last 7 Premier League games. And in the middle of this crisis, their head coach is talking to Manchester City. Chelsea's ownership saw this as a massive red flag. It showed his head was turned. It showed he wasn't fully committed. And it created instability at the worst possible time. Maresca claimed he was happy at Chelsea and even open to signing a new contract. But actions speak louder than words. And his actions said, "I'm keeping my options open." That was strike 3. But wait, there's more. During his time at Chelsea, Maresca attempted to publish a book about his tactical philosophy and coaching experiences. He did this without club approval. The club actually blocked it, fearing he was giving away trade secrets. He also attended Il Festival dello Sport in Italy, a major sports festival organised by La Gazzetta dello Sport, without permission from Chelsea. He was on stage talking about his methods while the club didn't even know he was there. And then there's the agent situation. Maresca actually hired super agent Jorge Mendes in October 2025. Think about that timing. Right in the middle of the season, just as the team's form was starting to wobble, and right before he told the club about the Manchester City interest, he switches representation to the most aggressive agent in football. Why would a head coach do that unless he was planning an exit strategy? Individually, these things might seem minor, but together, they paint a picture of someone prioritizing their personal brand over the club. Chelsea's ownership operates with a very specific philosophy. They want collaboration. They want alignment. They want everyone rowing in the same direction. Maresca was rowing in his own direction. And that's not how BlueCo works. Okay, so we've covered the off-field drama. But what about the actual football? Because here's the thing. Maresca's tactics weren't just failing. They were actively making Chelsea worse. Let's start with the defense. Chelsea conceded 21 goals in 19 matches. And the reason? Maresca's 3-2-5 system. In possession, Chelsea's fullbacks, Cucurella and Gusto, would invert into midfield, creating numerical superiority in the centre. It looked beautiful when it worked. But when they lost the ball, chaos. The flanks were completely exposed. The centre-backs were isolated in 1-versus-1 situations against fast wingers. And because Chelsea played such a high line, any mistake was punished immediately. Maresca made 25 changes to his defensive lineup in 19 matches. There was zero consistency, zero understanding, zero cohesion. And the stats prove it. Chelsea dropped 30 points from winning positions, the most in the entire league. They'd go 1-0 up, then concede 2 goals in 10 minutes, over and over again. Now let's talk about the attack. Despite having players like Cole Palmer, Noni Madueke and Mykhailo Mudryk, Chelsea's attack became robotic and predictable. Maresca demanded strict positional play. Players had to stay in their zones. They had limited touches. Everything was structured. And for someone like Cole Palmer, who thrives on freedom and creativity, This worked. Parma had 15 goals and 8 assists because Maresca gave him license to roam. But for players like Madueke and Mudryk, it was a disaster. Madueke is a natural risk-taker. He wants to dribble, take on defenders, make things happen. But Maresca's system stifled that. He was constantly being told to stay in position, to follow the structure. And Mudryk? Don't even get me started. The £89 million man looked completely lost. Before his suspension, he'd beat his defender, then make the wrong decision. He'd get into great positions, then pass to the opposition. His decision-making was atrocious, and Maresca's rigid system only made it worse. Sources close to the squad said training sessions became monotonous. The same exercises every day. Heavy focus on 1-versus-1 reaction drills. No variety. No creativity. Players felt like robots. And when you're asking creative players to play like robots, you're going to have problems. Oh, and one more thing. The long balls. Robert Sanchez, Chelsea's goalkeeper, attempted 23.2 long passes per 90 minutes. That's the highest in the Premier League, 76% higher than the previous season. The strategy was to force opposition centre-backs to head the ball back, then win the second ball and transition quickly. Sounds smart, right? Except against Liverpool, Sanchez attempted 45 long balls and completed only 8. That's a 17.8% success rate. The strategy didn't work. But Maresca kept doing it anyway. Because that's the problem with tactical rigidity. When it doesn't work, you have no plan B. Now we need to talk about the bomb squad. If you don't know what that is, buckle up. Because this is where things get truly ugly. At the start of the season, Maresca decided he had too many players. So he created a group of exiles, players who were completely frozen out of the first team. Raheem Sterling, Ben Chilwell. These weren't fringe players. Sterling was the highest paid player at the club, earning £325,000 a week. Chilwell was vice-captain the previous season. And Maresca didn't just drop them from the squad. He humiliated them. They were forced to train separately. They changed in the academy locker rooms, small outdated facilities meant for teenagers. They had no access to first-team facilities, no pathway back. On opening day, Sterling wasn't even in the squad for the match against Manchester City. No explanation, nothing. So Sterling's camp released a public statement. Raheem has returned to training and is committed to delivering this season. He expects clarity on his situation. And Maresca's response in the press conference. I prefer to work with other players. This is the reality. Brutal. Ice cold. No sugarcoating. Now, from a squad management perspective, you can understand the logic. Chelsea had 30 players. You can't keep everyone happy. Tough decisions have to be made. But the way Maresca handled it, that's where he crossed the line. Because it wasn't just about football. It was about humiliation. Ben Chilwell went from vice-captain to training with 17-year-olds overnight. Sources close to the player described him as broken by the treatment. And the worst part? When injuries hit and Chelsea desperately needed depth, Maresca's rigidity prevented him from reintegrating these players. He'd publicly said, "There is no way back." So even when the squad was stretched thin, he couldn't bring them back without looking weak. The bomb squad created a toxic atmosphere. Players in the first team started to fear they could be next. Trust eroded. Morale collapsed. And for what? To prove a point? Multiple sources said players were open to a fresh start because training had become monotonous and the environment had become toxic. That's not leadership, that's ego. We need to talk about Enzo Fernández. In July 2024, after Argentina won the Copa America, Enzo posted a video on social media. In the video, he and his teammates were singing a racist chant about French players of African descent. The video went viral. And Wesley Fofana, Enzo's Chelsea teammate, publicly condemned him on social media. Football in 2024, uninhibited racism. This created a massive problem. Chelsea has multiple French-speaking players, Fofana, Disasi, Badiashile. And now their captain had been caught singing a racist chant about people who look like them. Enzo apologised. Chelsea issued a statement. There was internal disciplinary action, but the damage was done. Sources indicated that while relationships remained professional, trust was damaged. The French players never fully forgave him. And Maresca's handling of the situation? He minimised it publicly. He kept Enzo as vice-captain, then made him captain when Reece James got injured. He insisted the dressing room had moved on, but they hadn't. And the fact that Enzo remained captain while players like Chilwell were exiled to the bomb squad, that created resentment. The optics were terrible, and it showed a complete lack of awareness from Maresca. December 30th, 2025. Chelsea drew 2-2 with Bournemouth at home. Another 2 points dropped, another lead blown, the third winless game in a row. And after the match, Maresca didn't attend the post-match press conference. He sent his assistant, Willy Caballero, instead. The official reason? He was feeling unwell. But sources confirmed it wasn't medical. It was an act of defiance. Maresca knew his position was untenable. He knew the relationship with ownership had broken down, and he was already mentally checked out. Simon Johnson, a Chelsea reporter, said, "The fact that he didn't do the press conference was a sign of not being professional. I think Maresca himself wanted to go away and consider his options." 2 days later, on January 1st, 2026, Chelsea announced they'd parted ways with Maresca by mutual consent. The statement praised his achievements: the Conference League, the Club World Cup, Champions League qualification. But it also said, Enzo and the club believe a change gives the team the best chance of getting the season back on track. Translation: this isn't working for anyone. Okay, so let's answer the question. How bad is Enzo Maresca actually? Here's the truth. He's not a bad coach. He won 2 trophies in 18 months. He qualified for the Champions League. He implemented a clear tactical identity. He developed players like Cole Palmer, Marc Cucurella, and Moises Caicedo. Those are real achievements. But he's also not blameless. He publicly undermined the club with the worst 48 hours comment. He ignored medical protocols and injured Reece James. He flirted with Manchester City while results were collapsing. He pursued personal projects without approval. He created a toxic bomb squad situation. He mishandled the Enzo Fernández racism scandal. And his tactical rigidity led to defensive fragility. So the real answer is this. Maresca is a talented coach who was fundamentally incompatible with Chelsea's structure. He wanted traditional managerial autonomy. Chelsea offers a modern, collaborative system where the head coach is one part of a larger machine. Neither side was willing to bend. And when you combine that structural incompatibility with poor man management, tactical stubbornness, and a series of off-field controversies, you get a divorce. David Ornstein said it best. At Chelsea, under current ownership, alignment with club policy is as important as results on the pitch. Maresca delivered results, but he didn't deliver alignment. And at Chelsea, that's a fireable offence. So that's the story of Enzo Maresca at Chelsea. A man who won trophies but lost the war. A coach who had the tactics but not the temperament. A leader who demanded loyalty but didn't give it. Was he treated unfairly? Maybe. Did he make his own bed? Absolutely. Now it seems like Chelsea is going to move on to Liam Rosenior, a coach who already understands their structure because he's currently managing RC Strasbourg, another club owned by BlueCo. Will he succeed where Maresca failed? Who knows? But one thing's for sure. At Chelsea, the structure isn't changing. The managers are. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because Chelsea's managerial carousel never stops spinning. And trust me, there's always another story coming. We'll see you in the next one.